channel, or welcome back to my channel. If you're not new here, my name is Andy, sometimes Mouse, and I talk about books and book-related things. And today I am giving you my September wrap-up. There is just one more wrap-up after this one, and then the rest of it is going to be clear your shit, and then end of the year content, which is very exciting. September was a pretty solid reading month. I was kind of surprised by the amount of books that I managed to get read. So let's just go ahead and get into the stats so we can, let's just go ahead and start talking about stuff. For total books read, it was 23. I did, and you'll see this in my 9-month book blanket update, I did wish I had read a little bit more for the sake of the book blanket, but overall, not too bad. For pages read, it was 3,422 for books with pages that weren't audiobooks. For audiobook hours, it was 128 hours and 7 minutes, which as days is 5 days, 8 hours and 7 minutes. My average rating for the month was a 3.5, which I do think that the worst book of the month, there being 3 of them, and it was the lowest ratings I've ever given books ever. I think that definitely tanked the monthly rating, but I didn't have like a ton of 5-star reads this month either, so I feel like that's sort of why that average is as low as it is. I don't know. My average pages per day was 174.1, and my average hours of listening time per day was 7 hours, 9 minutes, and 31 seconds. I checked out a total of 15 library books, and 4 of the books I read this month were rereads. 12 of them were audiobooks, 8 of them were ebooks, 3 of them were physical books, and for intended audiences, 15 of them were adult audience, 7 of them were young adults, and 1 of them was children's or middle grade. I do think that as the year is coming to a close, I'm kind of surprised and impressed by how different my reading has become over time, specifically with the audience part of this. I feel like I was definitely a young adult heavy reader when I first rejoined the book community, and then as time has moved on, I have moved away from that a little bit, and that makes sense because I'm older now. I was 23 when I started on BookTube, so I'm 28 now, and my reading sort of reflects that. I feel like, I don't know if that makes sense. We'll deal with that when it comes to my end of the year wrap up, I feel like. For pages of the books that had pages, I read 1 book that was less than 100 pages. I read 1 book that was 101 to 200 pages. I read 8 books that were 301 to 400 pages, and I read 1 book that was between 401 and 500 pages. Nothing over 500 pages this month, which is kind of surprising. I've been pretty steadily reading hefty fantasy novels recently, it seems like, but I guess I took a little bit of a break in September. I don't know. It's already October, so what do I know? For genres, which this is also something that's probably going to be addressed a little bit in my book blanket video, but for genres, I have 7 fantasy, 3 romance, 5 thrillers, 4 horrors, 1 nonfiction, general nonfiction, 1 memoir or biography, which was the Paris Hilton one, and then 2 contemporary novels. I also am excited about next year's book blanket, and this is, again, something that I'll probably talk about in a different video, but I'm excited about next year's book blanket because I'm actually going to give nonfiction its own color, its own shade. Right now it's been lumped in with the other, so anything that is white is contemporary, historical, general nonfiction, memoirs, etc. So I am classics even. I'm putting all nonfiction in its own category, and I'm a bit excited about that. I've got that planned out. Obviously, I'm gonna have a video talking about my book blanket and its plans and what I'm doing, whatever. It's not gonna be a surprise, right? But this is my plans, and I want to talk about them a little bit because I'm a little bit excited about it. That's it. That's literally the stats. I generally fly through them pretty quickly. Sorry, I guess, if that bothers you. I know that the stats is not like everybody's favorite reason to come here. I feel like we all come here to hear about what I consider the top book of the month and the bottom book of the month. I'm gonna go ahead and start in on the top books of the month because that's really easy for me. That's actually going to be When Sorrows Come by Shauna Maguire. That book is the 15th book, I think, in the October Day series. Now, I have obviously read all of these books at this point, and not all of them have been 5-star reads. They've all been between 4 and 5 stars, but When Sorrows Come was definitely a 5-star read for me. I enjoyed the way that character dynamics have developed to this point in this series, and some of the dynamics between the political forces at play within this series. It's been really interesting, and some of the closure that we got for certain relationships felt really fulfilling. I feel like when the series does finally end, I won't have very many questions about whose intentions are what and what their next steps are going to look like. I feel like I will have those questions answered. Shonen does a really fantastic job of doing that in series where, you know, you don't, if you have questions, it's more because it is a meta type book, so like Middle Game or Seasonal Fears, and a lot of the time a reread of that book will make that better or make that clearer. I just really enjoy Shonen's writing, and I think that this is a really good like pinnacle point in the series. There are a few books in the series that I feel like are really turning and pivotal moments, and this book happens to be one of them in my opinion. Not everybody might not agree if they've read all of the October Day books, but that is my current opinion. Next up, and I will say I only have 2 top books this month because I didn't have that many amazing reads this month. Next up, we have The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. Ozzy recommended this book to me. I didn't really know what to expect. I had read a little bit of it like at night because I had it on my Kindle Unlimited, and I was like, whatever, I guess I'm gonna read this slowly but surely. And so I finally put it on my TBR and actually like sat down and read it. And the first 50% of this book is pretty slow. Admittedly, I was like, I don't understand the hype that this book is getting. I don't like, because it's very hyped up. And I was like, I don't know why Ozzy recommended this to me. I'm a little bit bored, and it has a little bit of content that could be in my like trigger wheelhouse with incarceration. It wasn't, to be clear. But like, so I was like, I don't really understand why, what it is about this book. And then you kind of hit that 50% mark. Like, it's a thriller, so you're gonna keep listening. In my opinion, this is how I feel thrillers. I'm gonna keep listening because like I want to know what the big deal is in this book. Like, what's the mystery? What's going on? And with the minute you kind of find out what's going on, it does not relax. It's like at 50%, the book's like this, and then that 50% mark, and it's like this. And it just keeps going, and the high stakes, and you're stressed out, and it's who's gonna live, who's actually the crazy person, who's responsible for all of this, how's this gonna work out, how are they gonna manage this? I'm very stressed out. And that's how I felt about The Housemaid. Do I think that there needs to be a sequel? No. And have I noticed that Frida McFadden has like a ton of books recently that have come out, and I feel like that's like a lot of books to pump out, all because of the hype around one thriller, but does that happen a lot with thrillers and thriller authors? Seemingly yes. So like Ruth Ware had kind of a resurgence. That one author that you guys keep giving credit to who doesn't deserve it because she's a bad person, that could be a lot of people. I'm talking about Colleen Hoover. There's just, you know, I feel like that happens a lot where, and is she a thriller writer? I don't even know. I feel like thriller writers will get like that one book that does incredibly well, and then like a bunch of books will come out, like Lisa Jewell even is another one, and then the hype kind of dies down. And I worry that that's kind of gonna be what happens with Frida McFadden, but you know, I'm not her publisher, and you know, make your money where you can, right? So I hope that this goes well for her. I don't think I'll be reading the sequel because I cannot fathom it at all being as good as this first book. Honestly, I don't think that you can do this storyline again and it have the same hold. I think at a certain point it's then just going to be like, I support women's wrongs. I don't know what the second book is about, but that's just kind of my mindset. This book doesn't need a sequel, and so I am unlikely to read the sequel. And I think if I read the sequel, it would make me not like the first book as much. So not going to do that, but I did enjoy it a lot, and I highly recommend it if you like domestic thrillers. This one really had me reeling. I was like holding my breath late to a meeting because I was like, I have to finish the rest of this book immediately. Sorry, you all can wait. I'm not that important and you all can wait. That's actually it. Those are the top books of this month. Did I read some horror and thrillers that were good and that I have recommended to my friends who like those books? Yes, but would I consider them the top books of the month? No, but that's okay, right? That's fine. I enjoyed these 2 books a lot. So for the worst books, and I think if you've kept up with my videos, you probably can guess what the worst books of this month are going to be. I have recently been doing 24-hour reads in a week. kind of video challenges, and a lot of them are rereads of books that I have read before. And this September, I decided to do 50 Shades of Grey. Now, part of this is because every 9/11, I like to talk about how if it weren't for 9/11, we would not have 50 Shades of Grey. If you go watch my video of the 24-hour reads where I go in depth about the whole reading, all of it, you'll also hear me talk about that history. I'm not going to get into it here, but go watch that video. It talks about that, and I think in the very beginning, because I started it on 9/11. And that's terrible and in bad taste, and I understand all of that. I'm going to continue to do it though, because it is funny to me. Now, I opted to reread 50 Shades of Grey, and it was a painful and miserable and horrible experience. It also made me realize some things about my own teenagedom and how it had been shaped by this book in a negative way. I genuinely and wholeheartedly believe that these books should have never been published. I then went on to watch the movies, thinking surely the movies made it better. And it didn't. It actually fully showed this woman in a completely abusive relationship as romance. The whole thing is shown as a romantic relationship and not some horrifying power dynamic, messed up relationship. And that's not me kink shaming, that's me outright talking about the fact that even within kink, this is a domestic violence situation. It is an abusive relationship, and I think that the book should never have been published, because I think that I am not alone. And in fact, I know I'm not alone, because I have had comments and stuff from people saying, you know, now that you're talking about it, I realize that this shaped some things for me as a teenager as well. I think that it shouldn't have been published. I think that putting it in the hands of people as this is your intro into smut, this is your intro into kink, is dangerous. Because of the way that it frames it and the way that everybody seemingly talks about it as this romantic relationship, when that is not what it is. I think that it was only published because of the era that we were in. And it was just sexy, scandalous, whatever, which we didn't have a lot of that content. And you know, now people really want to censor everything in media, but this one would not be published now at all, because of the information we now know about kink, because that community is not as in the dark or secretive as I feel like it might have been when these books came out. But it really is just abuse labeled as a romance relationship, and I will give it the credit that I think that it's one of the first fan fictions that was published as a book and given very heavy and high acclaim, people liked these a lot, and I think that kind of started the pattern of fan fiction sort of getting rewritten so that it was definitely just fiction and inspired by other stuff, and then being published, like the Wattpad books that have been published since. I think that it did open the doorway for that, but I still think that it is a horrible book series. You can watch my video if you want more in-depth reasons that I think that it is horrible, outside of me just saying I think it romanticizes abuse and puts it in the light of kink when it's not. But that is the worst book of the month for me. I hated that series. I actually rated one of them a half star, and I don't think I've actually ever done that before. I've never rated a book just half of a star. Not even 1 star, half of a star. And I really wish I had DNF'd these books, but I couldn't because of the video I was making, and I just suffered through it, and it was a horrible time, but I did it. Especially because the people I were talking to was like, I'm very excited to watch you suffer through this video, and I was like, I'm doing it for my fans. Just kidding, they're my friends, but I did it for them. You know who you are. Pain. Just pain. But that is my wrap up for September. I'm very excited with the way that the year is kind of coming out at the end of all of this, like how my reading has looked and how my goals have been met, and I'm just enjoying the stuff I'm reading a lot. I'm not just reading things because I saw it online and everybody hyped it up and it seemed exciting. I can understand the hype for some books, but that doesn't mean I have to read it, and I feel like I've really gotten an understanding of the kind of books that I like to read, and so that's what I'm reading. So yeah, that's it. That's my wrap up. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe and share. I post videos every Tuesdays and Thursdays, except for the first week of the month, at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. And I have some Clear Your Shit content coming up next. So after this video, I think if not this one, then in a couple of videos. And I also have some like horror book recommendations and stuff that I am working on coming out soon for you guys, so just stay on the lookout for all of that. Like I said, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you didn't, and there's something I can do that's not like a subjective change my opinion kind of thing, let me know in the comments down below. If you've read any of these books, any of the two that I loved, or even the 50 Shades books, we can talk about it in the comments. Let's do that. But yeah, that's it. Don't forget to take your meds, drink your water, and do something today to take care of yourselves. Thanks for watching. Okay, thanks, bye.